I never thought the scent of cheap vanilla cologne in my own driveway would be the thing to destroy my life. Or maybe it was the way my 3-year-old daughter, Lily, pointed at the passenger seat of my wife's SUV and innocently said, "Mommy's wrestling friend forgot his sunglasses." You think you know the woman you married. You think you've built an unbreakable foundation. But let me tell you, it takes exactly 4 seconds for a 10-year relationship to turn into a crime scene. And I was about to become the lead detective. My name is Jake. I'm a structural engineer, a fancy way of saying I look at blueprints and make sure buildings don't collapse. Ironically, I couldn't see the structural damage in my own marriage until the roof was already caving in. My wife, Vanessa, was a high-end real estate agent. She was gorgeous, ambitious, and over the last 2 years, she had become an absolute nightmare to live with. As her commissions went up, her respect for me went down. She treated our home like a hotel, and me like the bellboy. Everything was an inconvenience to her, especially me, and sometimes, tragically, even our daughter Lily. I was the one doing the morning drop-offs at daycare, making the mac and cheese, and reading the bedtime stories. Vanessa was always hustling. She was always on her phone, her thumbs flying across the screen, her back turned to us. If I ever asked who she was texting at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday, she'd roll her eyes, letting out that condescending sigh I had grown to hate. "It's a multi-million-dollar closing, Jake," she would snap, not even looking up. "Someone has to pay for the lifestyle you enjoy so much. Don't be so suffocating." I made good money. I paid the mortgage. But to Vanessa, if you weren't wearing a Rolex and driving a Porsche, you were essentially a peasant. I swallowed my pride for a long time because I grew up without a dad, and I swore on my life that Lily would never grow up in a broken home. I thought I was being strong by taking her verbal abuse. I was wrong. I was just being blind. The first real crack in her armor happened on a rainy Thursday in October. Vanessa had rushed into the house, complaining about her clients, and threw her keys on the counter. She marched straight upstairs to take a shower, barking at me to grab her laptop bag from her car because she couldn't be bothered to go back out in the rain. I grabbed an umbrella and walked out to her Audi. When I opened the passenger door to grab her bag, it slipped, spilling its contents onto the floorboard. As I knelt down to gather her pens, lipsticks, and business cards, my hand brushed against something wedged deep between the passenger seat and the center console. I pulled it out. It was a sleek, black plastic card, a hotel room key. But it wasn't just any hotel. It was the Grand Marquis, a boutique, luxury hotel right in the middle of downtown, less than 10 miles from our house. I sat there in the driver's seat, the rain drumming against the roof, staring at the little black card. My heart started a slow, heavy pounding against my ribs. Why would she have a room key for a hotel in our own city? I didn't panic. I'm an analytical guy. I solve problems for a living. I gathered her things, put the bag back together, and slipped the key card into my own pocket. When I went back inside, Vanessa was in the kitchen, dressed in a silk robe, pouring herself a glass of wine. Lily was sitting on the floor, trying to show her a drawing, but Vanessa was staring at her phone again. "Here's your bag," I said, my voice dead calm. "Leave it on the table." She dismissed me, taking a sip of her wine. I walked up to the island, leaning over it. "Found something interesting in your car, Vanessa." I pulled the black key card out of my pocket and tossed it onto the marble counter. It landed with a sharp clack. She looked down at it. For a fraction of a second, just a microsecond, I saw her eyes widen, but she recovered so fast it was almost terrifying. She scoffed, shaking her head. "Are you serious right now, Jake? You're snooping through my car?" "I dropped your bag," I said, holding her gaze. "It was under the seat. Care to explain why you have a room key to the Grand Marquis?" She let out a harsh, mocking laugh. "God, you are so insecure, it's pathetic. I had a client meeting in their lobby lounge yesterday. My client is a germaphobe and didn't want to use the public restrooms, so the concierge gave us a key to one of the empty suites just to use the bathroom. I must have dropped it on the way home." She looked me dead in the eye, took another sip of wine, and smirked. "If you want to play detective, maybe you should find a better mystery. Now, if you're done interrogating me, I have actual work to do." She picked up her glass and walked away, leaving me standing there. It was a brilliant lie. It was smooth, detailed, and completely delivered with total arrogance. A weaker man would have apologized. A weaker man would have doubted himself. But I didn't. Because Vanessa forgot one crucial detail about her car. 6 months ago, her neighborhood had a string of break-ins. She was paranoid about her new Audi, so I installed a high-end, dual-facing dash cam. It recorded the road, but it also recorded the cabin, audio and video, and it synced directly to a hidden cloud account that I had set up using my own email. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse her again. I just smiled, made Lily a snack, and waited for nightfall. At 2 a.m., while Vanessa was snoring softly in our bed, dreaming about whatever she dreamed about, I sat in my dark home office. I opened my laptop, logged into the dashcam's cloud server, and pulled up the footage from the previous afternoon. I watched the video load. I watched Vanessa get into the car, but she wasn't alone. And when I saw the man sitting in the passenger seat, the man she was kissing passionately while they drove away from the Grand Marquis, the air completely left my lungs. It wasn't a stranger. It was the last person on earth I ever expected to see in her car. The glow of the laptop screen illuminated my home office in a pale, sickly blue light. I hit pause on the video, my hand trembling so hard I almost knocked my coffee mug off the desk. I zoomed in on the passenger seat of Vanessa's Audi. The man leaning over the center console, burying his hands in my wife's hair, wasn't some random wealthy client. It was Greg. Greg, my best friend since college. The guy who stood next to me at the altar as my best man. The guy who helped me build the custom treehouse for Lily in our backyard just last summer. The same Greg who came over every Sunday to drink my beer, watch football, and complain about how he couldn't find a good woman. Suddenly, Lily's innocent comment from 2 weeks ago hit me like a freight train. "Mommy's wrestling friend forgot his sunglasses." Bile rose in my throat. I had to sprint to the guest bathroom, gripping the edges of the sink as my stomach heaved. They weren't just hooking up in hotels. He had been in my house, around my daughter. I splashed cold water on my face and stared at my reflection. The old Jake would have grabbed a baseball bat, driven to Greg's apartment, and ended up in a police car by 3 a.m. But I'm an engineer. When I see a failing structure, I don't just smash it with a hammer. I analyze the load-bearing walls, I calculate the weak points, and then I bring the whole thing down with controlled demolition. I went back to the laptop and put my headphones on. I needed to hear the audio. I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. I hit play. "You're crazy for bringing that key into the house." Greg's voice filled my ears, smooth and relaxed. Vanessa laughed, a cruel, throaty sound I hadn't heard in years. "Relax, babe. Jake is completely clueless. The man practically apologizes to me for breathing my air. Even if he found it, I just spin some story about a client. He believes whatever I tell him." "Still," Greg replied, sounding a little nervous, "we need to be careful. If he files for divorce now, before the LLC is fully funded, it could mess up our timeline." I froze. The LLC? What LLC? "It's fine," Vanessa said smoothly. 2 more months. I'm funneling the commissions from the West Side properties into the new account next week. Once the seed money is secure for our agency, I'll serve him with papers. I'll say his emotional distance is affecting Lily. My lawyer says I can get primary custody and keep the house, which we can flip. I felt the blood drain from my face. This wasn't just an affair. It was a hostile takeover. They weren't just stabbing me in the back. They were actively plotting to steal my assets, my home, and my daughter, to fund their own competing real estate agency. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark, downloading every single video and audio clip from the cloud, backing them up onto 3 separate encrypted flash drives. One went into my safe at work. One went into my brother's safety deposit box. The third stayed in my pocket. When the sun came up, I walked into the kitchen and started making coffee, exactly like I did every single morning. The psychological toll of pretending everything was normal was agonizing. Vanessa came downstairs at 7 a.m., already dressed in a sharp designer suit, her phone glued to her palm. She didn't say, "Good morning." She didn't even look at me. "This coffee is burnt, Jake," she snapped, taking a sip and slamming the mug onto the counter. "I don't know how many times I have to tell you to use the filtered water. It's not that hard." I looked at her. I looked at the woman who was planning to destroy my life, strip me of my daughter, and fund her new life with my best friend using my money. I smiled. A calm, dead smile. "You're right, Vanessa. My mistake. I'll make a fresh pot." "Don't bother. I'll grab Starbucks on the way," she huffed, grabbing her keys. "By the way, Greg texted me. He's feeling a little down about his job. I told him to come over for dinner tonight. Pick up some steaks, will you?" The sheer, unadulterated audacity of it was almost impressive. She was bringing her lover into my home, making me cook for him right under my nose. It was a power trip. She got off on the thrill of it. "Sure thing, honey," I said cheerfully. "Steaks it is." As soon as her Audi pulled out of the driveway, I called my boss and took a week of personal leave. Then, I went to work. Vanessa thought I was an idiot, but she forgot that I set up our home network. I logged into her iPad, which she conveniently left connected to our shared Wi-Fi, and accessed her email through a mirrored router trick I learned years ago. It took me 3 hours to find the folder hidden under the label Marketing Drafts. Inside were bank statements for an entity called Apex Realty Holdings, LLC. The co-founders, Vanessa and Greg. I looked at the transaction history. Over the past 8 months, she had been diverting chunks of her massive commissions, money that was legally marital property, into this shadow account. The balance was sitting at $140,000. But that wasn't the biggest discovery of the day. While searching her home office for tax documents to copy, I noticed a small, loose floorboard under the edge of her expensive Persian rug. I pried it up. Underneath was a velvet jewelry box. I opened it, expecting to find the diamond earrings I bought her for our anniversary. Instead, I found a prepaid burner phone and a small folded piece of paper. I unfolded the paper. It was a printout of an email from a private investigator. Vanessa wasn't just hiding money. She had hired someone to follow me. I turned on the burner phone, my pulse pounding in my ears. The only contact saved in the phone was labeled The Fixer. I opened the text messages, and the last message sent from Vanessa's burner made my blood run ice cold. "The husband is becoming a problem. Proceed with the setup for next Friday. Make sure the police have a reason to arrest him." I stared at the glowing screen of the burner phone, reading the text message over and over until the words blurred. "Proceed with the setup for next Friday. Make sure the police have a reason to arrest him." My breath hitched in my throat. This had just escalated from a dirty divorce to a full-blown criminal conspiracy. If Vanessa managed to get me arrested, for whatever she was planning, it would be the ultimate kill shot. She wouldn't just win the house and the business. A criminal record would guarantee her full custody of Lily. I would be a convicted felon, stripped of my daughter, my career, and my dignity, while Greg stepped into my shoes as the new father figure. My hands shook, not from fear, but from a deep, volcanic rage. I pulled out my own phone, snapped high-resolution photos of every text message on the burner, and quickly memorized the fixer's phone number. Then, I carefully powered the burner down, placed it back in the velvet box exactly as I had found it, and nailed the floorboard back down. I had 4 days until Friday. 4 days to build a fortress they couldn't breach. That evening, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Greg standing on my porch, holding a 6-pack of my favorite craft beer. "Jake, my man," he grinned, pulling me into a bro hug. It took every ounce of self-control I possessed not to drive my fist straight through his teeth. "Greg," I said, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Good to see you, buddy. Come on in." The dinner was a masterclass in psychological torture. I stood at the grill on the patio, flipping perfectly seasoned ribeyes, while Greg and Vanessa sat at the patio table, drinking wine and laughing. I watched them through the glass door. I saw the way his foot subtly brushed against her leg under the table. I saw the lingering eye contact, the secret smirks. When I served the food, Vanessa immediately sighed. "Jake, this is medium well. I asked for medium rare," she complained, pushing her plate away. "It's like chewing on a leather shoe." "I'll make you another one, honey," I said smoothly. "Don't bother," she snapped. "I've lost my appetite." Greg leaned forward, playing the peacemaker. "Hey, it's all right, Jake. Cooking isn't for everyone. You stick to the blueprints. Let Vanessa handle the high-stakes stuff, right?" He chuckled, taking a bite of his steak. "Right," I replied, taking a sip of my water. "By the way, Greg, how are things at the firm? You mentioned you were looking into some new ventures. Anything I should know about?" Greg froze for a split second, a piece of steak halfway to his mouth. He glanced at Vanessa. Vanessa didn't miss a beat. "Greg is just exploring his options, Jake," she said coldly. "Not that you would understand the modern real estate market. It takes capital and vision. Two things you severely lack." "Well," I smiled, looking dead into Greg's eyes, "I guess it's a good thing he has you to fund his vision. Just be careful, Greg. Building on a weak foundation always leads to a collapse. And when it comes down hard." The silence at the table was deafening. Greg swallowed hard, his face pale. Vanessa glared at me, clearly irritated but oblivious to the double meaning. She just thought I was being my usual, annoying self. They left the table shortly after. I cleaned the dishes, kissed Lily goodnight, and went to my office. It was time to bring in the heavy artillery. The next morning, while Vanessa was at work, I didn't go to my engineering firm. I went to the offices of Marcus Thorne. Marcus wasn't a family lawyer who held your hand and talked about feelings. Marcus was a legal shark, a former prosecutor known for utterly decimating his opponents in court. I sat in his mahogany-paneled office and slid the 3 flash drives across his desk. I explained the dash cam, the hidden LLC, the $140,000 of stolen marital funds, and finally, the photo of the text message about Friday. Marcus clicked through the evidence on his monitor. For a long time, he didn't say a word. Then, a slow, predatory smile spread across his face. "Jake," Marcus said, leaning back in his leather chair, "in my 20 years of practice, I have rarely seen someone hand me a loaded gun, cock the hammer, and point it directly at their own head. Your wife is about to commit a felony. This isn't just divorce court anymore. This is a criminal matter." "What's the play?" I asked. "We wait," Marcus said, his eyes gleaming. "We let her spring the trap, but we make sure you aren't in it when it snaps shut." Marcus introduced me to a private security contractor he kept on retainer, a guy named Vance. Vance took one look at the fixer's phone number and had his identity within 2 hours. His name was Leo Vance, a local scumbag known for planting evidence and staging insurance fraud. By Wednesday afternoon, Vance had covertly installed microscopic, motion-activated cameras in the cab of my work truck, under the dashboard, and in my garage. We knew what the play was going to be. The fixer was going to plant a 1/4 pound of illegal narcotics in my vehicle on Friday afternoon while I was at the grocery store. Then, Vanessa would call in an anonymous tip to the police, claiming she suspected her husband was dealing drugs out of his truck with their daughter in the house. It was brilliantly evil. It would ruin my life permanently. Thursday night, the eve of the setup, I lay in bed next to Vanessa. She was scrolling through Instagram, a satisfied, smug smile on her face. She thought she was 24 hours away from freedom and a massive payday. She thought I was oblivious. "Big day tomorrow?" I asked softly in the dark. "Just a few closings," she murmured, not looking away from her screen. "Don't forget to pick up Lily from daycare. I'll be busy all afternoon." "I won't forget," I promised, I rolled over, my heart hammering against my ribs like a war drum. I wasn't just going to dodge her trap. I was going to take her entire world, flip it upside down, and watch it burn to the ground. Friday morning tasted like ash and adrenaline. I woke up, made the coffee with the filtered water exactly the way Vanessa liked it, and handed it to her as she came downstairs. She was practically vibrating with nervous, malicious energy. She was dressed in her best power suit, a crisp white blazer that made her look like an angel of death. "I have back-to-back showings all day," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Don't forget to get the groceries for the weekend. And Jake, make sure you take your truck. The suspension on my Audi has been acting up, and I don't want you scratching the leather with grocery bags anyway. Take the truck." She was spoon-feeding me right into the crosshairs. "No problem, honey," I said, giving her a gentle kiss on the cheek. She stiffened, pulling away quickly. "I'll grab Lily from daycare and head straight to the store." Once she left, I immediately called Marcus. "The bait is in the water," I told him. "Excellent," Marcus replied, his voice crackling with anticipation. "Vance is already in position at the supermarket plaza. Just follow the script, Jake. And remember, do exactly what the police tell you. Let them put the cuffs on you. It's vital she thinks she won." At 2 p.m., I pulled my Ford F-150 into the parking lot of the massive local supermarket. I parked exactly where Vance had instructed me to, right in front of a light pole, giving the hidden dashboard cameras a perfect, unobstructed 360-degree field of view. I locked the doors, walked into the store, and immediately slipped out the side exit, making my way to an unmarked black van idling by the loading docks. Vance opened the side door, and I climbed in. The back of the van looked like a NASA control room. Multiple monitors displayed crystal-clear 4K feeds from inside and outside my truck. "Showtime," Vance grunted, pointing to the center screen. A man in a gray hoodie and a surgical mask was casually strolling past my truck. He stopped, pretending to tie his shoe by the rear passenger tire. In one fluid, practiced motion, he reached up into the wheel well and attached a black magnetic lockbox to the chassis. It took him less than 4 seconds. "Got him," Vance said, tapping a few keys to save the footage. "Face capture from the dash cam confirms it's Leo the Fixer. The package is secure. Now, it's your turn, Jake." I took a deep breath, walked back into the supermarket, bought a gallon of milk to sell the alibi, and walked back to my truck. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. I got in, started the engine, and pulled out onto the main road. I didn't have to wait long. 2 miles down the highway, my rearview mirror lit up like a Christmas tree. Red and blue lights flashed aggressively as 2 police cruisers swerved behind me, their sirens wailing. I pulled over to the shoulder, put the truck in park, and rolled down the window, keeping both hands firmly on the steering wheel. "Driver, turn off the engine and toss the keys out the window," a voice boomed over a megaphone. I did exactly as I was told. 2 officers approached, hands resting on their holstered weapons. They dragged me out of the truck, slammed me against the side panel, and kicked my legs apart. "Jake Miller, you're being detained," the older officer barked as cold steel clicked around my wrists, locking my hands behind my back. "What's going on, officer?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "We received an anonymous tip," he said grimly. "We're going to search the vehicle." I stood on the side of the highway as rush-hour traffic crawled by. Dozens of people stared at me, pointing and whispering. 10 minutes later, a third officer emerged from under the rear of my truck, holding the black magnetic box. He popped it open, revealing 2 tightly wrapped bricks of white powder. The older officer turned to me, his face filled with disgust. "1/4 pound of cocaine. You're looking at 10 to 15 years for trafficking, buddy. Get him in the car." They shoved me into the back of the cruiser. As the doors slammed shut, I let my head fall back against the hard plastic seat. I was terrified, yes, but deep down, a dark, victorious smile was spreading across my face. Vanessa had played her hand. At the precinct, they threw me into a bleak, gray interrogation room. I sat there in silence for 45 minutes, Finally, two detectives walked in, carrying a thick manila folder. They slammed it on the metal table. "Here's how this goes, Jake," the lead detective snarled. "We have the drugs. We have the tip. Your life as a free man is over, but if you give up your supplier right now, I'll talk to the DA about keeping you in a minimum security facility." I looked at him calmly. "I'm not saying a word until my lawyer gets here." "Suit yourself," the detective laughed. "Your wife has already been notified. She's devastated, by the way. She's picking up your daughter and filing an emergency protective order as we speak." Right on cue, the heavy metal door to the interrogation room swung open. Marcus Thorne strode in. He wasn't carrying a briefcase. He was holding a sleek iPad. He looked at the detectives with the polite, predatory smile of a great white shark spotting a bleeding seal. "Gentlemen," Marcus said smoothly, "my client will not be answering any questions. Instead, you will be answering mine." "Who the hell are you?" the lead detective scoffed. Marcus placed the iPad on the table, spun it around so it faced the detectives, and hit play. The crystal-clear, high-definition video filled the screen. It showed Leo the fixer walking up to my truck, looking directly into the hidden camera, and planting the drugs. The detective's jaws practically hit the floor. "What you are looking at," Marcus said, his voice ringing with absolute authority, "is a known felon, Leo Vance, planting narcotics on my client's vehicle exactly 53 minutes ago. But it gets better." Marcus swiped to the next file. It was the high-resolution photographs of Vanessa's burner phone messages. "Proceed with the setup for next Friday. Make sure the police have a reason to arrest him. My client's wife, Vanessa Miller, hired Leo Vance to frame her husband for drug trafficking to guarantee full custody of their daughter and seize total control of their marital assets. Oh, and here are the bank records proving she has been embezzling over $100,000 to fund a shadow company with her lover." Marcus tapped the screen again, bringing up the LLC documents. The room went dead silent. The lead detective swallowed hard, his eyes darting from the screen to me and back to Marcus. This is conspiracy. This is false reporting, fraud, and framing," the detective stammered. "Yes, it is," Marcus agreed cheerfully. "My security team already forwarded Leo's current GPS location to your captain. If you send a squad car right now, you can pick him up at the Red Roof Inn off Interstate 9. And I guarantee you, a bottom feeder like Leo will sing like a canary the second you put the squeeze on him." 2 hours later, my handcuffs were removed. Leo the fixer had been picked up, and true to Marcus's prediction, the second they threatened him with a trafficking charge, he confessed to everything. He handed over his own phone, which perfectly matched the messages on Vanessa's hidden burner. The DA was furious. They had been manipulated and used as pawns in a dirty divorce scheme. At 6 p.m., a judge signed 2 immediate, high-priority felony arrest warrants. One for Vanessa Miller, one for Greg Hastings, as a co-conspirator in the financial fraud. "You're free to go, Mr. Miller," the captain said, shaking my hand in the lobby. "My officers are en route to your residence right now to execute the warrants." "Captain," I said, a cold, hard determination settling in my chest. "I'd like to be there when it happens." The captain looked at me, understanding flashing in his eyes. He nodded. "Follow my cruisers. Don't interfere, but you have the right to be on your own property." I walked out of the police station and got into my truck. The sun was setting, casting a blood-red glow over the city. I put the truck in drive and headed home. Vanessa thought she was popping champagne to celebrate my destruction. She had no idea the wrecking ball was already swinging directly at her front door. I parked my truck 2 houses down. Through the windshield, I watched 4 black and white police cruisers silently glide into my driveway and block the street. They had cut the sirens a mile back. The flashing red and blue lights painted the front of my beautiful suburban home in harsh, frantic strokes. I stepped out of the truck and walked up the sidewalk, stopping just at the edge of my lawn. Through the large bay window of our living room, I had a perfect view of the celebration. Vanessa and Greg were standing by the fireplace. Greg had his arm wrapped tightly around my wife's waist. Vanessa was holding a crystal flute of our most expensive champagne, throwing her head back in a joyous laugh. They were toasting to a future built on my destruction, toasting to the fact that they thought I was currently sitting in a concrete cell, weeping over my lost life. I watched the lead detective and 3 uniformed officers march up the porch steps. The detective pounded on the heavy oak door. Bang, bang, bang. Inside, Vanessa jumped. She looked at Greg, a thrilling, wicked smile spreading across her face. She practically danced to the front door, smoothing down her white blazer. She was ready to play the devastated, heartbroken wife for the officers who were coming to deliver the terrible news. She swung the door open. "Oh, officers, thank God you're here," Vanessa gasped, her voice dripping with fake, trembling panic. "I've been so worried. Is it my husband? Has something happened to Jake?" The lead detective didn't blink. He stepped right past her, crossing the threshold into the foyer, forcing Vanessa to back up. The 3 uniformed officers filed in right behind him, their hands resting on their utility belts. "Vanessa Miller?" the detective asked, his voice echoing in the high-ceilinged entryway. Yes, that's me," she stammered, her fake panic faltering for a second at the sheer hostility radiating from the cops. "And you are?" the detective barked, pointing a finger at Greg, who was now frozen by the fireplace, his champagne flute hovering in midair. I'm a family friend," Greg said weakly. "Greg Hastings." "Perfect. Saves us a trip," the detective said coldly. He pulled 2 folded pieces of paper from his jacket pocket. "Vanessa Miller, Greg Hastings. I have warrants for both of your arrests. You are being charged with conspiracy to commit fraud, embezzlement, filing a false police report, and conspiracy to distribute narcotics." The champagne flute slipped from Vanessa's hand and shattered against the hardwood floor. "What?" she shrieked, the pitch of her voice shattering the quiet night. No, there's been a mistake. You're supposed to be arresting my husband. He's a drug dealer. I called the tip line myself." "We know exactly what you did, Mrs. Miller," the detective said, signaling to the officers. "Your boy Leo Vance is currently in custody, and he sang an entire opera about your little arrangement. Turn around and put your hands behind your back." "No, wait, you don't understand." Vanessa screamed, her perfect, arrogant facade completely disintegrating. She backed away, her eyes wild with genuine terror. "I'm a respected real estate agent. I didn't do anything. It was all him." She violently pointed at Greg. "Greg planned all of it. It was his idea to set up the LLC and hire the guy." "Hey," Greg yelled, dropping his own glass. "You lying bitch. You paid the guy from your own burner phone. I told you not to do it." "Both of you shut up and turn around," an officer roared, grabbing Greg by the shoulder and spinning him against the wall. The metallic clack-clack of handcuffs echoed through the house. I chose that exact moment to walk through the open front door. I stepped over the shattered glass of the champagne flutes and stood in the center of the foyer, my hands casually tucked into my pockets. Vanessa was fighting the female officer trying to cuff her, sobbing hysterically. But when she saw me standing there, a free man, wearing a calm, cold smile, she completely froze. The fight left her body. The color completely drained from her face, leaving her looking like a ghost. "Jake?" she whispered, her voice cracking. "How?" "You're right about one thing, Vanessa," I said quietly, walking right up to her. "I don't understand the modern real estate market, but I do understand structures. I know what happens when you build on a foundation of lies and greed. It collapses." I leaned in, my voice dropping to a harsh whisper so only she could hear. "I found the key. I had the dash cam. I found the burner. I watched you plan my funeral, and then I dug the grave for you instead." Her knees buckled. If the officer hadn't been holding her arms, she would have collapsed onto the floor. She finally realized the magnitude of what had just happened. She hadn't just lost the game. She had been playing against a rigged deck for a week and didn't even know it. "Take them out of my house," I told the detective. They dragged Greg past me first. He wouldn't even look me in the eye. He was crying like a child. Then they hauled Vanessa out. She was screaming my name, begging for forgiveness, promising she would give me everything if I just dropped the charges. I didn't say a word. I just watched the cruisers pull away, taking the garbage out of my life for good. It's been 18 months since that night. The trial was a bloodbath. With Marcus Thorne steering the ship and the mountain of irrefutable video and financial evidence, the jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Vanessa was sentenced to 7 years in a state penitentiary. Greg got 5. Because of her felony convictions and the attempt to frame me, the family court judge didn't even hesitate. I was awarded 100% full physical and legal custody of Lily. I kept the house, the retirement accounts, and every single dime of the $140,000 they had tried to steal from me. I quit my job at the engineering firm and used the recovered money to start my own independent consulting business. It allows me to work from home, set my own hours, and most importantly, be there for Lily. Every night I read her a bedtime story. Every morning I make her pancakes. Our home is quiet now, filled with peace instead of tension, and love instead of arrogance. Sometimes, when I'm sitting on the patio looking out at the treehouse I built, I think about Vanessa. I think about her sitting in a tiny concrete cell, wearing a cheap jumpsuit, stripped of her designer suits, her expensive car, and her freedom. She thought she was the smartest person in the room. She thought I was just a peasant she could step on. But she forgot the golden rule of construction. You should never underestimate the man who knows exactly where your weak points are, because when he decides to bring the hammer down, he won't miss.